Hello learners, welcome to Education Online. I'm Madam Danny Susan, your teacher of math. Today we're going to study about solving quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are equations in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, which is more or less the same as the quadratic expressions we had before. We've learned one thing from that quadratic expressions always have, when it comes to factorizing them, they have two roots. So in this case, when given a number, for example, if given a, let me say, work like this. If we have something like x squared minus x minus 6, you're expected to have two roots at the end of the day. And when you have these two roots, like how we were doing in factorizing quadratic expressions, when we express, we ended up with two roots as required. But for this case, we are going to equate it to 0. So when you equate it to 0, the two different factors you have in, you equate each of them to 0 to give you the answer as required. But you can see that these answers we are looking out for when it comes to quadratic expressions, yes, I already said that they have two roots, and these are the roots we are looking for, that it can either be equal or it can be unequal, it can be equal to 0 depending on the final answer you will get. But for us to also know one thing, when it comes to quadratic expressions, we are saying equations of the form they are called quadratic equations, where our a should not be equal to 0. So when you have a quadratic equation, we are going to learn how to solve them. And one of the things we need to take as note, that this is the expression for quadratic equations. And for this case, when we are solving, we are going to equate the given equation to 0. And after finding the two factors at the end of the day, you equate each of them to 0 to get the final answer. And as I said earlier on, the answers can either be equal, it can be unequal, or can even be equal to 0. Let's take an example of x plus 2 into x minus 3. We equate it to 0. If given an expression, so you come and factorize it at the end of the day, you will be left with two factors, just like we said earlier on. After factorizing the expression originally being given in the question, you'll be left with two factors, as we said. And after getting the two factors, you're supposed to equate each of them independently to 0, so as to come with the answer. For example, we can say either x plus 2 is equal to 0, and our final value of x will be negative 2, or we can say it is x minus 3 is equal to 0, and the final value of x will be positive 3. As we said, the values we will get at the end may either be equal, it may be unequal, or it will be is equal to 0. So let us have, we are having also different methods of solving quadratic equations. We have methods, several of them have about 3, but we're going to learn them differently so that it can help us to solve quadratic equations easily. Let's start with the first one, which is the factorization method. The first one we said is the factorization method, that is method A. We know that with factorization we always have to work the given equation out, and after working out, after simplifying or after solving the quadratic equation being given, we're supposed to have two different factors. And after having the two different factors, we shall work it the same way as it is here. Then we get the two different answers of x to suit our question. So we're now going to have we are saying with factorization method, we're trying to understand on how we're going to use the method to solve quadratic equation. So we've said we consider this, and with the left hand side of the equation can be broken into So this is it for factorization method. We said for the left hand side of the equation can be broken into two factors, and if and only if b squared minus 4ac is a perfect square, then the equation will factorize. So let us try to understand through examples why it is conditioned that for a number to be factorized easily using this method, it should be a perfect square. That means it should be b squared minus 4ac. So we're going to have some examples. But before the examples, let us have a note to help us. Quadratic equations has two roots. The roots may be equal, unequal, or one of these. May be 0. Just like I say that the quadratic equations have two roots, And when you work out the roots, you should either get equal answers, or the answers may be unequal, or the answer, one of the two, will be 0, depending on the question being asked. So we are having our example 1 here, which says solve the following. Solve the following quadratic equations, and we are having a as x squared minus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, and our b will be x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. So we are having two different equations here as our example. We need to solve them differently, and we understand how we use the factorization method to solve quadratic equations. So we are seeing our first example. Let's have the solution. So with quadratic equations, we are also going to find the two roots, and for us to know the two roots, first of all, we need to know the product and the sum in the equation being given. Then we find two numbers that is going to help us. For example, our value of a, remember the equation in the format ax squared plus bx plus c. So our value of a, which is the coefficient of x squared in this case, is 1, and our value of b is negative 3, and value of c is 2. So we're going to have this as our product. So we shall have here 2 being the product. So our sum will be negative 3. Now we need two numbers that when you choose the two numbers, when you multiply, should give you 2, and when you add them, should give you negative 3. So we're going to have negative 1 and negative 2. And negative times negative will give you positive 3, and when you add these two, you get negative 3. So we go ahead to solve our number. We're now going to have x squared minus x minus 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. The two numbers which you get here, that when you multiply them, you get 2, and when you add them, you get negative 3, are the numbers we put in this expression for the part of sum. Where we have sum, you can use that expression. You don't write it as 1. Remember, we're having an equation. Where there is 1, you put x. And why are we putting x? Because any number multiplied by 1 is that number. And in this expression, we are having negative 3x. So we are simply expressing this negative 3x in forms of the two numbers we've got here. So when you add these two, negative x minus 3 minus 2x, you will still get negative 3x as your answer. So we've not altered the question that much. We've not made a difference. So after this, we are now going to group this and also group that. When you look at this first here, our common factor in both is x. So we are going to factor x out, and x squared divided by x will give you x. X divided by x will give you minus 1. Don't forget the sign. So in this second case, we are having 2 being the common. But remember, from our first bracket, we are having x minus 1, implying the second bracket we get here should equate to the first one. So when we are choosing the common number here, we should be careful and careful of the sign we choose to help us. So in this case, we are going to choose a negative, so that a negative divided by negative will give us positive x. Then negative 2 divided by positive 2 divided by negative 2 will give us negative 1. We equate the whole of these to 0. After having that, we are now going to get our two factor, and the first one is x minus 2, and the second factor will be x minus 1. All of it is equal to 0. After getting the two factors, just like we said, we can either get equal answers, we can get unequal values of x, or we can even get one of the values of x has been 0. So we're going to say either the first value of x, which is x minus 2, is equal to 0, or we shall find the second value of x being x minus 1 is equal to 0. So we come and work this out. This will be x minus 2 plus 2 is equal to 0 plus 2. This will go, and finally our value of x will be 2. And when you come to this side, we shall have x minus 1 plus 1 is equal to 0 plus 1. And finally we shall have x is equal to 1. So these are our two values of x. They are not the same, they are unequal. Let's work out the second example, which is example B. It says x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Remember, when we talked about expressions in the other previous lesson, we said when you are factorizing expressions, you end with two factors in their bracket. This would have been where we would end. But when it comes to quadratic equations, since it's equated to 0, you go further and get the final values of the unknowns in the equation. So we got this second case, we need to know what is our product here. And our product, after multiply, we shall have 1 times 6 to give us 6. And then our sum is going to be negative 5. And the two numbers that when we choose will favor us to give us product of 6, and when we add should give us negative 5. So we're going to have negative 2 and negative 3. When you add these two, you will get negative 5, and when you multiply them, you get positive 6. Let's go ahead now to solve the number. We're now going to have x squared minus 2x minus 3x plus 6 is equal to 0. Don't get confused. We are moving together. This is the two numbers I got that when I multiply, it should give me 6. And when I add them, I must get negative 5x. And when you add here negative 2x minus 3x, you get negative 5x. So we continue. Here we shall have, after having this, we regroup. After grouping, we identify the common factors. Then we factor it out. For example, for the first bracket, we can say that x is common to both. So we bring out x. X squared divided by x will give us x. Then negative 2x divided by x, we shall have negative 2 as our answer. So we move to the second one. We are having 3 common to both 3 and 6. But when we are choosing, remember, we want the brackets to look alike. So we need to consider which sign to pick out to help us to gain the same bracket. So in this case, we are going to bring out negative 3. The reason why I'm choosing negative, so that this negative can affect this 6 to help us get the same bracket as this one. So negative 3 divided by negative 3x divided by negative 3 will give us x. Then 6 divided by negative 3 will give us negative 2. We equate the whole of this to 0. Now we're going to get our two factors. The two brackets are the same. Our first factor will be x minus 3. And the second factor will be x minus 2. We equate it to 0. We do not end here. We go ahead to find the final values of x. So we're now going to have it like either x minus 3 is equal to 0. So we shall have x is equal to 3. Or we're going to have x minus 2 is equal to 0, and final answer will be x is equal to 2. Don't forget that whenever a number is a negative, this side, when it crosses the equal sign, you simply add it on both sides. That's why we're getting a positive value of 3, and at the same time we're getting a positive value of 3 here. So therefore our two values of x's are 3 and 2. have example C. They're saying it's 7x squared plus x minus 6 is equal to 0. Here our value of a, or coefficient of x squared, is no longer 1. And we say that our value of a, or coefficient of x, should never be 0. It can be in negatives, it can be a fraction, it can be in positives, but it can never be 0. Because any number multiplied by 0, it becomes meaningless. So in this case, we have 7. So we're going to multiply this 7 with 6. 6, which is the value of C. We need to get the product. So when you multiply 7 times 6, you get 42. But the 42 should be a negative. Why? Because 6 has a negative value. I mean negative sign. So we're saying our product is negative 42, and our sum is going to be 1, positive. So what are these two numbers that when you multiply should give you negative 42, and when you add them, it should give you positive 1. So the two numbers are going to be 7 and 6. Why? 7 times 6 will give you 42, and when you add, sorry, this 6 should be negative because our product is having a negative value. Then when you add 7 and 6, it should give you positive 1. Now we're going to have our 7x squared plus 7x minus 6x minus 6 is equal to 0. Hope we are moving together. So here, after writing this expression, we come and group. After grouping, we identify what is common. So in this case, we are having 7x being common. We pull it out. Then 7x squared divided by this will give us x. Plus, when you divide this, you get 1. Then here we are having 6 common to both, and they're all having negative, so we're going to pull out negative 6. Then negative divided by negative will give you a positive, and we shall be left with x. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 will give you positive 1. Our two brackets are matching. So we're now going to get the first factor as 7x minus 6, and the second factor will be x plus 1 is equal to 0. So we are saying it's either 7x minus 6 is equal to 0, and we shall have 7x is equal to 6, and then we divide both sides by 7 because we want the final value of x, and we shall have x giving us 6 over 7, or we are saying it is x plus 1 is equal to 0. So we shall have x plus 1 minus 1 is equal to 0 minus 1. And finally, our value of x will be negative 1. So this is it for factorization method. Let's go to the second method, which is methods of completing squares. We said for the method of completing squares, when given for example, the equation originally it is ax squared plus bx plus c. By completing squares, we first express the quadratic equation in a way that when given an equation like this, we are going to divide the coefficient of x throughout so that we can have no value on the coefficient of x, which is the value of a. So when you have an expression like this one, then we equate it to 0. First thing to do is we are going to divide throughout by, so we're going to have ax plus bx plus c is equal to divide by a, divide by a. So this here will go and we shall be left with x squared plus bx over a plus c over a is equal to 0. So we are saying with this we already having that when given this original expression for quadratic equation, we are completing squares. What we need to do is we are going to square, but before we square we need to first divide the coefficient of x squared throughout, and after squaring it like this, that is when we shall go on to square. We shall square this coefficient, then add it on this side and also add it on the other side. Let's have examples. And our first example is we are saying solution to our first example, which is x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Just like I said that when solving a number like this one, when we come to this value of b, we're going to divide this b by a half. We square the result, we add on one side, and we also add on the other side. So let's work it out practical and we see how it's supposed to be done. Okay. Let us first solve, then we shall explain later. when given a number like this one and you're completing squares, we said we divide by a half. What are we dividing? The bx. You divide bx by 2, then you square it. As I said earlier on, you add on one side and you subtract on the other side. But for this case, we worked it all this side, and at the end of the final, that's when we took it this side. That's why I'm adding at the same time I'm subtracting to bring out the completion of square. So in this case, when we have x squared plus 3x plus, this is the first addition of 3, you divide the value of b by 2, you square it, then you also subtract the value of b. You first write b out of 2, you square it, then you add 2 is equal to 0. After that, you can see that x squared and 3 over 2 squared are common with the square sign. So you bring them as x plus 3 out of 2. In bracket, you put the square outside. Then here we come and squared this. 3 squared is 9 and 2 squared is 4 plus 2 is equal to 0. We are trying to bring it in a way that even if I don't work it this way, I can carry the whole of this the other side and work it out. Before the division, I take this to the other side, it will be a negative. Then after, I can also take the other one, the other side. But I first chose to work it out on this side before I transferred it on the other side. So after that, after squaring this and getting the final value of 3 over 2 squared, we got it as 9 over 4. We found the LCM for, this is out of 1, the LCM is 4. So we worked this out and we got 9 plus 8. We kept on maintaining this, our bracket, which is squared. So we maintained the bracket without any adjustment, or we did not do any calculation, but we are working out on this side. So we see that this 9 is a negative. So negative 9 plus 8 will give us negative. A quarter is equal to 0. Then we came here and transferred the quarter, which was a negative, to this side, and it became a positive. We are having a square sign here. So to remove this, we introduce square root sign on both sides. The square root sign cancelled with these two. That's why we're able to remain with s plus 3 over 2. And this side, when you find the square root, you either have a positive or a negative of the answer. That's why we are having this. Now with this, we are going to continue to work it further and get the final value of x. So we are saying either x plus 3 over 2 is equal to positive a half, so we shall have here x plus 3 out of 2 is equal to a half. This will be x is equal to a half minus 3 over 2. The LCM is 2, so we shall have 1 minus 3. And our x final will be negative 2 over 2 to give us our value of x as negative 1. Then in the second case, we shall have or x plus 3 over 2 is equal to negative a half. Shall have x is equal to negative a half minus 3 out of 2. So we shall have here our LCM is 2. This will be negative 1 minus 3. So we shall have negative 4 out of 2. And finally, our answer will be negative 2. So these are going to be the two possible values of x in this case. So with this, we shall stop here with completion of squares, but we shall continue more next time with other method and more examples on completion of square. Thank you. I remain your teacher.